Ever tried buying a gaming PC because the pictures looked slick and the specs promised no compromise, only to find out the performance drops the second you load a game, or the tower turns into a heat lamp that screams for a fan upgrade? I've been there, and it's the exact reason I'm sitting down to break down the ASUS ROG G700 before you click Add to Cart. The vibe of the listing is tempting: a sleek chassis, RGB lighting, and a wall-to-wall claim of future-proof power. But those marketing lines don't tell you how the machine behaves when you actually set up a 1080p shooter, stream your favorite Twitch channel, or try to multitask with Photoshop open. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about who this box is really for. If you're a casual gamer who mostly sticks to titles like Minecraft, Fortnite's casual modes, or older indie games, you'll probably find a lot of headroom in the G700's hardware, perhaps even more than you need. The real sweet spot, however, is the mid-range enthusiast who wants to hit solid 1080p frames at high settings, dabble a bit in 1440p, and still have enough horsepower to run a couple of background apps, think Discord, Spotify, and a web browser without the stutter you see on cheaper builds. If you're chasing 4K ultra-high refresh gaming or need a workstation that can crunch large 3D renders all day, the G700's RTX 5060 and 32GB of DDR5 will feel modest. You'll be better off looking at the higher-end ROG towers or building a custom rig. Now, the first thing I noticed after unpacking the G700 was the overall layout. ASUS kept the classic ROG aesthetic black matte with red accents and a subtle light bar that glows when the PC powers up. The front panel houses a USB-C 3.2 Gen 2 port, two USB-A 3.2 ports, and the power button that doubles as an RGB controller. It feels nice to press, but the real test is the internal cooling. The tower uses an air-cooled thermal design paired with a 600W gold-rated PSU, which on paper sounds robust. In practice, after running Shadow of the Tomb Raider at 1080p with medium-high settings for about an hour, the CPU temperature hovered around 70°C and the GPU peaked just under 80°C. Those numbers are perfectly safe, and the fans never reached a whine that would drive you mad. For a typical gaming session lasting 2 to 3 hours, the cooling stays quiet enough that you can keep the headphones on without hearing the case itself. One of the hidden trade-offs in this machine is the SSD size versus future expandability. The 1TB NVMe drive's fast boot times are under 10 seconds, and loading Cyberpunk 2077 levels takes about the same time as a console SSD. However, because the drive sits on a single M.2 slot, you can't add a second SSD without swapping the existing one out or using an external enclosure. If you plan to keep a large library of AAA titles that each take 5,070 GB, you'll start feeling the squeeze after about 10 installs. A good workaround is to keep a secondary external SSD for less frequent games or media, but that adds an extra cost and cable clutter. Performance-wise, the Intel Core Ultra 7265F paired with the RTX 5060 is a solid combo for the price bracket. The CPU's Ultra branding suggests a next-gen architecture, and indeed the chip handles modern instruction sets well, delivering smooth gameplay in titles like Valorant and Apex Legends at 144Hz on a 1080p monitor. The RTX 5060's 8GB of GDDR6 memory is enough to push recent games at 1440p with medium-high settings, though you'll notice some texture pop when you crank everything to Ultra. The key here is that the GPU isn't a bottleneck for most mainstream esports titles, which is exactly where the G700 shines. You get high frame rates without needing to drop below 60 frames per second, and you can safely record gameplay with OBS while streaming. If you're also looking for a ready-to-play setup, the bundle includes an RGB mechanical keyboard, a mouse, and Windows 11 Pro. The keyboard uses a basic membrane design, not the clicky tactile feel of a mechanical board, but the backlighting synchronizes with the chassis colors, which is a nice aesthetic touch if you like the ROG vibe. For the mouse, the sensor is decent for casual use, though competitive players might want a higher DPI and adjustable weights. The inclusion of Windows 11 Pro matters if you plan to use the PC for more than gaming. Features like direct storage support could reduce load times further, and the Professional Edition adds BitLocker encryption for peace of mind. A practical downside that often shows up in reviews of pre-built ROG machines is the upgrade path. The G700's motherboard is proprietary, meaning you can replace the RAM sticks, SSD, and even the GPU without too much hassle, but you're limited to certain form factors. The GPU is a standard 2-slot card, so swapping for an RTX 3060 or higher is possible, but the case's airflow may become a concern if you push a more power-hungry card. Also, the PSU, while rated at 600W, is a non-modular design, UL.